We had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
And I look forward to continuing this dialogue in the months ahead. Thank you very much, everybody.
Sitting on it. Great. It's all tangled around. Just don't spill my
That's where I usually put my coffee.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to
Wake Up America.
My name's Phil Marie.
And what's my name?
Walter J. Kopaczynski the 15th.
Oh.
Yeah, he's from a long generation of Kopaczynskis.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Yeah. Tonight we have a great guest, NSA Whistleblower Kirk Wiebe. Wanted to come back, and there's a lot we're going to talk about. Before we get into that, I just want to recap just a little bit last week. I was upset. What's wrong, Wally?
Well, I can't see that camera.
Well, the camera's here,
I know.
Wally. Never mind,
you know what I
guys.
mean.
Anyways, last week, Walter, I mentioned how Mother's Day, I was with my stepdad, prayed with him outside, and from that point on, I was attacked. Inside, internally, I don't know what organs, whatever they were doing, hitting. They were hitting my rectum with these weapons, and I ended up, unfortunately, a bloody mess. Monday, nothing but a lot of blood coming out, and I chose not to go to the doctors for my own reasons, and just knowing what can or will happen. But nonetheless, I showed pictures of it. And I haven't shared these pictures yet with Kirk Wiebe. I will, and I didn't post last week's show on YouTube. This week will be posted. Next week we're not going to be here, Memorial Day, so we're probably going to rerun this show next week. So if you know anyone that misses it, they can tune in next week. I'm assuming we're going to rerun this. And that's about it, really. And we do have a video. We have a 4-minute short video. And the second 2 minutes is Dwight Eisenhower again with the military-industrial complex. Okay. Because when he warns that the public will be, public policy will be controlled by the technological elite, bingo. I mean, that's what we're living right now. Yeah. That was, what, 1961? So anyways, let's bring on Kirk. Kirk's already on. Kirk, are you there?
Yes, I am, Phil and Wally. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. And as the viewers, if there's any new viewers, Kirk Wiebe is one of the several whistleblowers, such as Bill Binney and Thomas Drake, who have both been on our show. Bill Binney's coming back at the end of June to do a special July 4th, week of July 4th show, so that should be fun. And Kirk Wiebe has been helping along the people who are targeted and being attacked. So a lot of thanks go out to Kirk and Bill Binney and these guys for caring for people and caring about the Constitution, our Bill of Rights, so forth. But tonight we're going to focus on a court ruling with the NSA bulk data collection. And we're going to let Kirk explain a lot of this, explain the players involved, the politicians involved, this, that, and then we have obviously questions to ask them. So Kirk, if you want to start in, you can start right in with this court ruling and what's coming down the pike here.
All right, will do. I'm going to try to keep this simple because I'm frustrated, Phil and Wally and your listeners, with the fact that the Congress and the NSA are working together to make this all difficult to follow and difficult to understand. All righty?
And we agree, we agree with you on that too.
Yeah, it's much more complicated and than it needs to be. Now, part of that's the fault of Congress, because to be honest with you, NSA has given them a lot of techno talk, and people's eyes glaze over. Congressmen and women are human; their eyes also glaze over. And what's lost is what it means in terms of our rights and legalities, the Constitution, and all of those things. So with that lead-in, I'm going to talk about what I see Mitch McConnell and John Boehner trying to do right now. They're trying to get Congress to simply reauthorize everything they already have in the Patriot Act. They would rather not pass the USA Freedom Act, the newest effort to try to rein in at least some part of the NSA's bulk collection. And McConnell is threatening to keep the Senate in session if they don't resolve this issue before they leave for the Memorial Day weekend vacation. So we are all going to see what's more important to Congress, their Memorial Day vacation or getting it right with the Constitution. So, with that introduction, let me state to you this reality. Even if NSA were to lose the battle in Congress and Congress were to allow the bulk collection components of the Patriot Act and other legislation associated with it lapse, in other words, sunset, which means go away as of 1 June, the NSA would still have authority to do bulk collection under Executive Order 12333. Now, Executive Order 1233, and I hate to come up with these very obscure-sounding names of legislation, but this is what our government has given us. So there's this executive order that was issued years ago that gives NSA authority. And when I tell you about this, you're going to say, so why in the heck did they feel the need to do the Patriot Act? Because 12333 gives NSA the authority to collect data on anyone it believes is involved in terrorism or crime. And that means any kind of data, it doesn't make any difference. And that even includes Americans. So it already had the authorities that we see them using. It's just that they wanted to continue to do it as a permanent feature and a permanent permission, which they don't have. So they know that no matter what happens with Patriot Act, no matter what happens with the USA Freedom Act, they have good old Executive Order 12333 to do all the different business it wants to do. Now, don't get me wrong. I do not dislike NSA. NSA has a valid role and function. Doggone it, it needs to do its job in a constitutional way that gives Americans their rights while they succeed, NSA succeeds in catching people who are trying to do all of us some kind of harm. We understand that. All right, so, and so I give you this information in the audience's background because not much is hanging on this USA Freedom Act. It's a lot to do about nothing. It does some things that change the current rules, but all in all, it doesn't change much. NSA has plenty of authority to collect all the data it wants to, including Section 702 of the FISA Amendments Act. People's eyes are going to glaze over when I talk like that. But it's another piece of legislation that's untouched by any of the USA Freedom Act. So let me pause there and see what you and Wally think.
What I was thinking about, Kirk, is the Filibuster Act. I don't think McConnell really wants to pass this. I think he's just faking it because they still have to get 60 votes to pass that act. And they're not going to get enough Democrats to vote for it. So I don't think...
I hope you're right.
I think that's what's happening. But in your opinion, should the Republicans use that Filibuster Act, make it a rule like the Democrats use it against them? Because they can't pass anything right now, just about.
No, you're absolutely right. The Democrats changed that. I think they called it the nuclear option. But
right.
In any case, the Republican, well, let me look to Rand Paul. Rand Paul says he'll filibuster if he needs to, if things are not going the right way. And the way that he believes things need to go is that we need to stop collecting all this data about innocent people and focus in on the bad guys and the guys close to those bad guys. Because everyone could agree that's the way, the old-fashioned way, the police and the FBI do any kind of an investigation. You start with the guys closest to the bad guys, and you start asking questions, analyzing the information you're getting, and looking at the facts, and let the facts lead you to more bad guys. That's good old-fashioned investigation. And that's what Rand Paul says we ought to do. And I would tell you we actually have three kinds of choices. We can keep doing what we're doing now, not change anything, which doesn't make me feel comfortable because it can be so abused, just as we saw the IRS abusing its authority against conservatives. So we know the government's willing to abuse its authority. The other one is, let's encrypt everyone's data that isn't guilty of anything so that NSA analysts can't look at it. That at least protects the innocent. And the final way to do it is, don't even collect the data about the innocent. Just pay attention so they're close to the bad guys. So there's three scenarios for you to simplify the whole thing. And as far as the Republicans voting, what we really need is the entire Congress, Republicans and Democrats, turning back the clock to what we all were operating under before 9/11. And that was all the constraints and restrictions the Frank Church Committee had put in place way back in the 70s, and the constitutional process that was ordered to be used by government authorities. That's all we really need to do, is say, I don't care what legislation you're talking about, we're going to go back to what was on September the 10th, and that's going to be it, and that's what they ought to vote for.
What scares me, Kirk, is the fact that this government we have right now is taking full control all government organizations, such as the FBI, such as the Justice Department. The Justice Department is working like a defense attorney for that woman at the IRS. They helped her, and she took the fifth and all that. But now they were investigating all conservatives. Who was doing that? The IRS, which was controlled by Obama. Obama's taken control of all government agencies like no other president has ever done. And that scares the heck out of me, what's going on in this country. And name of this program is Wake Up America, and they better wake up in a hurry because I don't think we got much time left.
And I'm going to echo your fear. I am also frightened at this point. I wouldn't have said that maybe 3 months ago, but I am now. And it's for the reasons you cite, Wally.
Yep.
And just look at the list of things that have been going on in addition to Obama taking over personal control, if you will, of all these agencies. We have stories in the news. Now, they're somewhat buried. They're never featured by the mainstream media, by the way, but they're ones that make your eyebrows curl. And what I'm talking about is the raiding of homes in Wisconsin by police using strong-arm methods, breaking in doors, yelling and screaming at families, pushing them down on the couch, and threatening them, all because of their political beliefs. In this case, it's related to the strength of the unions, mainly public unions in the state of Wisconsin. And if you remember, Governor Scott Walker had his hands full fighting off those unions in the state of Wisconsin. But to have police enter people's homes and threaten them, my God, if that's not an indicator of a police state and politicians willing to use power, I don't know what it is, you know.
Kirk.
Now, here's a, yeah.
Excuse me, Edmund, finish what you were going to say.
Well, I was just going to say another one is the Veterans Administration. You know, the Veterans Administration has been found to be derelict in providing services to our veterans. And frankly, I take that personally. I'm a vet, and I don't like it when people who go out and sacrifice and get hurt for this country are hung out to dry. No one has the right to do that, doggone it. But what they're doing is there's whistleblowers inside the Veterans Administration that have been trying to tell the truth about what's been going on, and the VA is using private data about those whistleblowers to give them a bad reputation or to try to describe them as crazy or inept or stupid or, you know, it's the same old discredit. So our government supposedly is trying to fix the VA while the VA continues to do things that most of us wouldn't agree with. And then finally, I'll just simply say one more, and I can list about 8 more. The FBI is working with the Veterans Administration to keep veterans from buying guns. Yep. The DHS has listed returning U.S. veterans of the armed forces as potential terrorists. Can you believe it?
Yeah. You know, you had mentioned that about a police state. Now, Phil and I were talking about this a little earlier before you came on the air, and we're wondering, are we becoming a police state? I'm looking at what President Obama is doing right now. He's taking away equipment from our police departments, and he wants to take control of all the police departments in this country. That's scary too, because that never was intended, and it's not in the Constitution where the federal government should be in charge of all police states, police people in each state. But I think it's coming down the road that he's looking for that kind of a police state.
No, you are absolutely right. Again, what you're sensing this change and this authoritarian approach. I call it fascism. You can call it what you want. You can call it communism, socialism. It's all about strong, centralized government control of the apparatus that governs people. And, Hitler did the same thing in the Weimar Republic before Germany became the Third Reich under Hitler. He formed the secret police, the Gestapo, as we know. The East Germans had the Stasi, the Soviet Union had the KGB, and now we're acting very much like those that we used to fight against, or at least oppose in terms of the way to bring democracy to bear for a trusting people. So these are all moves to take over, and they should be fought and resisted at every opportunity, Wally. So I agree with you 100%. We are seeing the ascension of the police state.
And here we got President Obama sending the Justice Department to investigate the city of Ferguson and to investigate the city of Baltimore. He wants the people to get prosecuted. He wants to find out what the police are doing. And it's not helping America because he's just going after certain groups of people, and that's not right.
No, you're absolutely right. He has favorites, and he'll make sure he takes out the good guys and keeps the favorites that are willing to do whatever Obama wants to do, and none of it will have much to do with the Constitution.
And how many generals has he released? And how many?
Oh.
You know?
You know, a lot of people, you know, this has been very subtle, and it's been, you're obviously picked up on it, a slow, deliberate firing, dismissal of generals and other high-ranking military personnel that he thinks don't toe the line, his line. People who have allegiance and swear allegiance to the Constitution are not the kind of people Obama likes. He won't say that publicly, but it's obvious what he's doing.
I have a son-in-law who was a colonel in the Air Force, and he was in line to be a general, and he could never get that spot. He never could get that spot, and he's a good man. He's very loyal to this country, so he had to get out of the service. He had to get out of the service. Now he's flying for an airlines. But that's sad because he would have done a good job as a general in this country. But this, I think he was overlooked because of his background.
He was, and I would agree with you, it was deliberate. Obama wants, if everybody would think back and remember what he said we need an army of civilians, an army as big as our military army.
Right.
And he wants to put it under the Department of Homeland Security. And this is part of what I would call not the Gestapo, but the brown shirts. The Germans also had another group called the brown shirts,
right,
who would snitch and inform on anyone who did not believe, as did the Führer, Hitler himself. So there were multiple people working for Hitler to report in. Hitler never trusted one group. He always wanted to hear from 2 or 3. So he had his insiders, and that's exactly what Obama's looking for.
Yeah, he's hiring people now to be part of that army, and he's been paying them for 6 years now. He's lining them all up. When we have trouble in these cities, these people are already in line to go to these cities because they got manufactured signs before the events even happened. So now when you see these people demonstrating in these cities, they got store-bought signs. They're not making them scribble in them. They're bought signs. And that's what he's been doing all over this country, and they're going to do even worse. And every time someone gets killed by a police officer, they're going to have riots again. You watch.
Yep, you are absolutely right. And Wally, that method of operating, going in with professional people to agitate and make sure specific things happen so that they can capitalize on the chaos to claim that they need to invoke martial law. And so this is well-known tactic also of the KGB, also of the Gestapo. But of course, we don't teach these things in schools, so the young folks don't believe it, or they don't really see it, even though it's right before their eyes. So it's very important that you continue to educate everyone in your listening area about these things. These things have been proven in history. They're not new, but they cause a terrific amount of upheaval for whatever system they're using.
When we see the government of Baltimore allowing children to throw stones and bricks and injure police officers and not try to stop them, that is big time wrong. And something's got to be done.
Yeah, it's just symptomatic of what we're talking about. It's the absence of rule of law. It's what happens when you have anarchy, basically. People doing what they want to do, and that's part of the trend. The one way you break down our constitutional republic is do away with the rule of law and claim we have to do it to protect certain groups of people. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
You're absolutely right.
Kurt, this is great, and I was concerned about Wally. I wanted to make sure that Wally chimed in tonight, and so far, I really didn't think about myself getting a chance to chime in, but that's okay. We're halfway through the show. You guys are doing great. I'm going to continue listening.
Well, you have a lot to say, too. So
no, I'm just busting your...
chops?
Well, your lower chops.
Well, Kirk is doing a good job, and we appreciate him being on the show.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know the people are listening to the show, and they're learning something. That's what we want to do. We want people to learn. We want them to look and read and find out what's going on. Like we say, wake up America. It's got to happen now.
Now, Kirk, I'm looking at a letter from Rand Paul that he sent out for his campaign, and he talks about that he's preparing to head into the lion's den, and that means leading the charge with a filibuster, even if it means if he does so alone. So apparently Rand Paul is ready to take the fight up alone on this. So
yeah, and we need that kind of backbone, and it's so missing in many of our representatives in Congress. It's like they've all forgotten what we've sent them there for, and thank God for Rand Paul to stand up and to lead this effort.
Well, I think, which we never showed the video, I kind of jumped the gun, but that's all right. But like what Eisenhower said, that the money controls a lot, and beware the military-industrial complex,
right.
and the public policies being controlled by the technologically elite. And, you know, we see that happening today, and I think that's what's keeping these people from doing the right thing. I think their pockets are being lined from all these different lobbyists and different contractors, what have you.
You are absolutely right. We're seeing firsthand the effects of the military-industrial complex and the professional politician who wants to, at all costs, protect his or her position. Now, that's most of them. It's not all. But the ones that aren't in that category are way in the minority. And the American people are going to have to do a better job of cleaning house. And it's very important to watch what they do, the decisions they make, and keep score. Because if you're not keeping score and just re-electing, you actually become part of the effort to perpetuate the very things that we're seeing that you're talking about.
Kirk, I'm looking at the Republicans and how many people are going to be running for the President of the United States. We got approximately 20 people that want to run to be the President. There must be a lot of money just for running to become a president, to be a nominee. And, you know, that's going to destroy, I think, hurt the Republican Party, because now you're dividing the people up and you can't hear enough of one person to make a decision who you want to support. And I think these guys, they better get off their high horse, because they're not all capable of being presidents.
Absolutely right. And it's going to be extremely interesting to see how this plays out. Now, it heartens me a bit to hear Rick Santorum's story. Here's a guy who's always on the sidelines. He's never considered mainstream, but he actually did a pretty good job in the past in Iowa.
Right.
Everyone's looking to Iowa. And so it encourages me that good people can make a difference and that people in Iowa are discerning enough. Good folks, there's enough of them who recognize when money is trying to carry the day and aren't willing to go along with it. So I hope that trend continues and we see some good things coming out of that.
Okay.
Hey, Kirk, I want to read something real quick.
Sure.
Due to the secretive nature of the agency's work, NSA contracts are often shielded from public disclosure, and identifying financial links between pundits and the agency's web of partners is tricky. But the work of journalists and whistleblowers such as James Bamford, who was assigned to an NSA unit while serving in the Navy, gives us a sense of which companies work for the U.S. intelligence agencies. Drawing largely from these disclosures, they have been identified several former government and military officials whose voices have shaped the public discourse around government spying and surveillance issues, but whose financial ties to NSA contractors have received little attention.
Yes. And I think you might be referring to an article that appeared within the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
That highlights who some of those people are and how they have connection to companies who have lucrative contracts with the NSA and others in government.
One.
And, the only place that I've seen that topic truly explored in detail is a Washington Post, believe it or not, Washington Post article about 3 or 4 years ago that put a whole page diagram in that depicted how different companies were locked into government contracts. And but that was a single-time event. We haven't heard about it since until a book by Tim Shorrock, S-H-O-R-R-O-C-K, that Tim Shorrock talked to me about. And it's a book that he put out here, I believe it was last year. But if your audience will Google Tim Shorrock, S-H-O-R-R-O-C-K, Tim probably does the best job of focusing just on this topic. He actually names names, the companies they work for. And if you want to get a rundown on the military industrial intelligence complex, I would recommend Tim's book to anyone. It should be mandatory reading, and people will be blown away by the nature of it's like family. I mean, the relationship between industry and government is almost it's a solid line. It's not a dotted line as it should be. We've allowed industry to become actually part of the government.
So Kirk, as the viewers are watching, what would you suggest if they wanted to call, let's say, their congressmen or senators? What is your suggestion?
Well, I would certainly say, let's get back to the Constitution when it comes to surveillance. That they're not going to buy this business, that you have to give up privacy in order to be secure. And I'm telling you, from a technological point of view, they will be 100% correct in saying that. We know how to go after bad guys without the need to have everyone's data out there for everybody to look at. So please, that's one. The other thing they should say is we need to divest or get rid of the undue influence of business on Congress when it comes to awarding contracts and exerting this undue influence on government decision-making. Otherwise, the decisions will never be about keeping the government or the nation safe. It'll always about keeping some corporation's money flowing in. In other words, we've sacrificed the Constitution. We've sacrificed the mission of the military for dollars. And that's not a good deal. Nobody wins. People get hurt, and more will get hurt as long as that continues to be the case.
What's the main purpose of collecting all this data, other than blackmail, future blackmail, or using it against people?
Right. I've thought a lot about this and spoken with my colleagues about it, Ed Loomis, Bill Binney, Tom Drake, Diane Rourke. And we to a person agree that it's the law enforcement people, the people interested in the police state, who are doing this, not so much NSA. NSA collects most of it, but the FBI has access to it, and they want all this data to make their job easier when they have to investigate. Now, listen to what I just said. They want their job to be easier. Now, if you ask an average American, do you want police to have it easier so that they can catch bad guys? They will unwittingly say, well, of course, I support my police. Well, of course we do. But there's a reason why we have the Constitution, and that is to protect us from abuse of authority like police. Yep. Not that any given policeman is today a bad guy. What we're worried about is when the wrong policeman or the wrong police chief uses data for purposes other than purely law enforcement. And so that's why there's a separation in our Constitution between the authority of the government and the rights of the citizens to privacy. It's there for a reason. The King of England had abused his authority. For those who remember their history and those who have never heard it before, the King of England put British soldiers in the homes of the colonists before we were a nation, in order to find out what the colonists were up to. He didn't want them revolting, and he knew that the British soldiers would dampen and tend to dampen discussion and interaction between people, which would delay or defeat any attempt to revolt against the King of England. Well, of course, that didn't fly ultimately. The colonists didn't like that. They didn't want soldiers in their homes. Well, let me tell you, NSA reading your emails and reading your phone calls and everything else you do, your tweets and your chats, is the King of England putting soldiers in your home. It's just through a different device. That's
and
all.
Kirk, they can watch you and listen to you as well, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, it isn't just reading your stuff. I mean, all these devices have cameras on them, microphones on them. It's a built-in tracking and tracking system.
Absolutely. I mean, they're even talking about now these modern televisions. Not only are they connected to the internet, but they have cameras built into them now. And NSA and others are constantly learning how to turn those cameras on, and you don't know it. There's no indicator light. There's nothing. You don't even know it's watching you. And so it gets pretty spooky when you consider all the possibilities.
Kurt, right now, what we got going on in this country is that the government, state and federal, are trying to take away property rights of the citizens. If I discover oil on my land, that's my oil. When they start taking away land, that will become the government's oil. And that's not right. They're doing this in Connecticut right now. They're trying to remove all kind of houses away from the area so they can put up buildings for some businessmen. That is happening now. They want to take away property rights of us, our people.
Eminent domain they're trying to push again.
And they're really pushing it here in the state more and more. And that scares me. They've been doing this for years all over the country. You know, you have a very successful business there, but they want that property. They throw them out, and they bring their friends in to build another building there. And property rights are so important. That's what made this country rich, and it gave every individual who had property, saved their money, worked hard, and they could get ahead. That's going to stop the people from growing. And
you are absolutely right. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys probably know this better than I because you're up there in Connecticut. But wasn't it Connecticut? And I think it was a town not too far outside of New York City into Connecticut. But somebody got a judge to declare eminent domain and wiped out a bunch of private property so that it could be awarded to a business guy who wanted to build a mall or something. And I remember this was like 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe 6 years. I'm losing my ability to gauge time now that I'm 70 years old.
Yeah, Kirk.
I would tell you that it is frightening beyond belief. And let me tell you something. If you study how fascism takes hold in a country, read it historically, governments always form partnerships with major businesses and the banks, because then you begin to control every aspect of a person's life.
And that's
why the education system, you control the economics, you control the press, you control the message, and they're already affecting the press. It's hard to find the truth.
Kirk, I can name one company called GE, General Electric,
right,
that fits all of that. They got GE Capital, which is the banking part of GE, that I believe was bailed out at one time by the government, which I don't know why, and GE makes all the weapons. GE owns media companies, and they're in bed with the government.
And they're not paying taxes properly like most businesses. If you look and see how much taxes they're not paying them.
That's the collusion.
GE happens to be the job czar for President Obama.
Jeffrey Emold.
And what he has done, he has shipped more business over to China than we have businesses that were developed in this country since he was on that job. Now, all the light bulbs are being made over there. General Motors, most of their cars are being built in China again. Why is that? You know, the workers lost those jobs because now they're over in China. Now, we got to get business back to this country, and we have to employ our own people.
Absolutely right. We're selling out this country, Bill and Wally, for the personal wealth of various individuals who don't care about the country anymore. They care about their bank accounts, and it's happening on an increased frequency.
Now, just kind of change this a little bit. You mentioned, I talked to you earlier, Kirk. You mentioned that you were out to lunch with Judge Napolitano, correct?
Yes.
Now, Judge, I'm one of his biggest fans.
I am too.
Wally and his wife are also two of his biggest fans. And some of our viewers that have been watching for 3 years probably remember in the first year or so when we started this show, I used to show a lot of short videos of Judge Napolitano. And what a great American, great patriot that guy is.
Yep.
And he stands up for the Constitution. And apparently you're good friends with him, correct, Kurt?
Yes, I have a lot of respect for the judge, admire him greatly, as do you. His clarity of thinking, he's an expert on the Constitution. He's apolitical. He believes in what the founders did is really important to keep enforced, to stop politics from changing the dynamic. Otherwise, we become a nation of men. So I have the utmost respect for that man.
I do too.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Now, we got like not even 10 minutes left. What was that organization you have? Stand Up for Truth?
Yeah, standupfortruth.org or exposefacts.org. It will probably coalesce as one website, but right now we've got two supporting this effort to turn the average person into a whistleblower. Because what's taken hold in our country is corruption. We've corrupted ourselves. You know, I don't want to get too religious, but you remember the story, Moses goes up to get the 10 Commandments from God, and God tells him to go back down the mountain because his people, Moses' people, had corrupted themselves. Well, that's where we are. And we need to begin to fight at a grassroots level. Children to the oldest people on the block need to find the courage to tell truth as much as they possibly can, even when it's uncomfortable to do so. Many people will say, well, I can't rat out my boss. He'll fire me. Well, let me suggest to you that if you don't do that, it's going to get a lot worse. They'll take control of every aspect of our lives, and what kind of a country are we going to have then? So I would say do it. You know, be street smart about it. Don't fall on your sword, but try to find a way to get the truth known where corruption is beginning to take hold. And I don't care if it's in your local organization or where you work. Get truth out, and let's begin to fight evil at its roots.
And you know what, Kirk? You said that perfect, because society is becoming used to lies, scandals, everything that God represents in our lives, in the 10 Commandments and what have you, has been stripped from this country all the way through.
And they're attacking religion right now.
Exactly. And, you know, me and Wally talk a lot about that, and about faith, and about Christians being persecuted. And you know, this goes to show what is taking place actually is affecting the lack of God, the lack of morals, the lack of good judgment being overridden by power and the power, authority, and wealth.
President Obama and Hillary Clinton want the church to change their views on abortion. They said they have to go in another direction, or they're going to take away their rights in their hospital. The Catholic school hospitals don't have abortion there. They say they're going to have abortion there, or they're going to get away all their tax credits that they're getting. And that's scary right now. They're after religion. It's terrible.
Well, you know, for so many years, hundreds of years, religion stood this country well. Not just as a religion, but because of how it helped govern all of us as people. Without a conscience, we'll do anything. Religion provides that kind of conscience. And I don't care what religion it is, as long as it teaches morality. Let's put it that way. And that's what you're referring to.
Right.
is how do we teach morality if not through religion? And I don't see anybody teaching it in high school. And whose standard are they using? Some people believe it's okay to steal if it's to feed your face. Some people say, no, that's not right. You should go and ask, and people will be charitable and give you the food. So, you know, religion is key to forming a conscience in human beings. And conscience is what dictates your understanding of what's right and what's wrong. And in the absence of it, who's teaching it in today's society?
Kurt, you brought up a subject that came into my mind as you were talking. What do you feel about this Common Core where the government wants to teach all the states what they're going to teach in school? I don't know if you're...
Well, yeah, I'm aware of it, and I don't like it one bit. The government doesn't do many things well. You know, at one time, government did the military well. Now it's finding ways to even screw that up.
Yep.
But it was generally the one thing they did well. So what we need to do now is, again, do not let the government take centralized control of every aspect of our life. Or we lose our own voice at the local level, which means we can't influence what happens. So I caution everyone,
hey, Kirk,
not to give this kind of power to the government.
Kirk, did you hear about the New York politician, I forgot what the guy's name is, proposing that the public schools turn into boarding schools and that the government, local governments, local schools, the public schools can do a better job with many of these children and keep them there 24/7.
Oh.
You talk about creepy brainwashing. You talk about setting it up for the pedophiles. I'm sure there's pedophiles in all systems. And what a raunchy idea to take children from their parents and put them into a publicly 24/7 boarding school.
That's what Obama's doing.
Yeah, and I think that, well, you're right. And it's the same theme again. It's centralized control of lives.
Yeah.
In the name of saving people. And this is how dictatorships and tyranny, fascism, the Hitlers, the Mussolini, this is how they take power. And an unknowing public nods its head and says, that sounds good, until they discover that they're so deep into it that they've lost the very freedom of even thought. And so people need to be very, very careful about this kind of talk. Now, we do need to do something about the destitute poor in our country. And I'm talking about those that are caught. Many of them are black. They're caught in these ghettos in these cities in an endless cycle of single-parent families, drugs, gangs, shootings, single-parent families, drugs, gangs, shootings. This has been going on for half a century. Since the 60s, it's been getting worse and worse. And I would submit to you that we got to break that cycle, even if it means, and I'll say something that's quite controversial, even if it means taking these people, and I'm talking about the single moms have 3, 4, 5 kids, the fathers are nowhere to be found. Take those families, put them on some of the military bases that we've closed, give them a clean place to live, refurbish the barracks, convert them into rooms, give the mothers job training so they can get a marketable skill.
Hey.
Give the kids the basic 3 R's. Remember, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Correct.
And I give them a dose of civics as well.
Kirk, we got about 10 seconds left.
Kirk, Wally's panicking.
I'm sorry.
You did a great job. Thanks a lot.
So listen,
All right, talk to you.
Kirk, hold on. I want to thank you. And, you know, let's have you back right after this voting goes down after June 1st, all right?
Sounds great, Phil.
Thank you, Kurt. Have a good night. God bless.
Take care of yourself.
All right, God bless, guys.
Bye.
And all the viewers, God bless the viewers. God bless America. Next week, we're not on the air. It's Memorial Day. So you may see this show again. And then the following week, you will see us ready for action. And possibly we'll have Kirk back on with us. Good night.
And please, Americans, wake up and find out what's going on in your country.